and we are in the second of our five periods, which is European settlement, kind of in the mid to late 19th century. And we have the David Hollis Land Survey Troop here to give the history. And I will let David take it away from here.
My dear horse is with me. I've come out here to survey this land so that the people back in LaPorte can sell it to you. It's pretty wet here. I need a helping hand, but nobody was willing to come out here with me. Me and my horse. Don't you take in any of this ink. Now, I have my own tripod. I came out from Plymouth this morning. It took me since 8 o'clock to get here. My horse is kind of slow moving. And besides, there was this Indian trail that just went all over the place. I hope I can get my tripod to stand. I don't know. I had to rig it up. But maybe you could help me. Could you help me?
I'll sure try.
Anyway, I needed to put my level on and my telescope and all the stuff. Horsey, would you need to sit down? I could help you. There. Now, it's a pretty hard trek all the way from Plymouth, and I brought my gear with me just in case we need to stay overnight, if we can find a dry spot. I wanted to share with you how I do this, how I go about measuring lines and making out roads and stuff, lines for roads to go on. There ain't no roads here. I shouldn't use that word ain't. I was educated back in Boston. Anyway, this is a Gunther chain. The Gunther chain was invented in the 1500s. And the Gunther chain has got all these links in it. And these links was stretched out over the land. Can you imagine that? I have to go this way through the swamp and measure this approximately 66 feet to a chain. And I wanted to know if this room was about 66 feet, and I reckon it is. Each of these links is about 8 fingers. Fingers was another measurement we use. So I can measure this road that I took, or so-called path that I took from Plymouth this morning. And if I get 66 chains, I get a mile. So 66 chains, about 8 miles, 9 miles from Plymouth, 7 miles. Took me 4 hours to get here. And then I have a tripod and I have a level. I have to look for my level. I brought my own bedroll in case I have to stay over. Have one of them things. And I have one of those calipers to see how wide a tree is. And then I had to get some other stuff in here. Here's my level. Because I have to have it, I have to go by the sun so I get true north. So I have a sun compass. And then I have this telescope-like thing that I look through with a level on it. And then I have all this other stuff in here, like pan. If I have to cook my own meals, candles. I have to have something to blaze the tree with to mark it as a post, a corner post. I had another measuring tool here. Have to set up corner posts.
We're going to pause Dave there just for a moment. And you see he's pulling things out that he needed for this surveying job of his. But do you ever think what he didn't have with him in this swampy area? For instance, no bug spray. Wouldn't have had that. That could get pretty miserable. When he paused for dinner, he didn't have a nice little beef stew in a can. He had to do something else, either eat cold food or go out and shoot a rabbit or something. Do you ever think what might have happened if he got hurt? No phone, no way to contact anyone. Hopefully he had someone with him, but then they would have to go get help. I don't believe he brought his first aid kit. He might have brought some things, home remedies. Would have been nice to start a fire, but he had to do it the old-fashioned way. You're supposed to be frozen, Dave. And measuring. He had to do it with a caliper around a tree instead of a measuring device that we have today. And many other things. It's just good to stop and think what they went through, what they didn't have, and how ingenious they were. Because, as Mary said yesterday, the maps were right on. The surveying was done well and fits today's maps. And so, back to Dave.
So my most precious tool is my little broadaxe hatchet, which I brought a file too, so I need to sharpen it. And wanted to talk about this time that I'm living in. The Indians is quite disturbed right now because they're trying to move them out of here. And so I'm not so sure I'm going to stay overnight out here. I might just go back to Plymouth and stay at the hotel for the night because I think they might be a little bit upset with us, white people here, us settlers. So I'm willing to do my day's work here and write that down. I forgot my ledger somewhere. Oh, it's up here. I have to write my stuff down on here. You can see my handwriting up there. There it is. So I have this pen and ink that I have to write that longhand with. So I had all this paraphernalia to try to maneuver here. How you doing, horse? It's hot in there. So I think we're going to be taking off. It's been nice being with you. Bye. Can you see? Here's our mascot. Okay. All right. 1, 2. Oh my gosh.
Hello, hello. Wow. That was quite the blast from the past right there. Pretty amazing. And I think now that David is gone, we'll ask if Sister Mary wants to come back out. And if
I want to pick up the chain.
and pick up the chain. If anybody has questions, Sister Mary knows David very well, and she may be able to answer on his behalf.
1833, I read this morning, Chicago was just a village of 4,000 people. I thought that was interesting that this guy ventured out here. Before even the federal government decided that they were going to get a band of surveyors to come out en masse to survey the Northwest Territory, of which we're a part, that was only in 1833. This guy was here in 1829. So he was really kind of a brave soul to come out here. So Adam was talking yesterday, and when we were looking at the maps, about how accurate these surveyors were. They could stand at a space probably and look at the changing vegetation and be able to tell a little bit about what was going on in the soil. It was amazing. So this is actually a chain that was used to survey. And imagine putting this down and picking it up and going another whole chain until you went a mile, 66 times. So this was no small feat. No small feat.
So you can't really see it from there because of the script, and it's not the clearest. But for each mile, well, the land was divided into sections with 1 mile on each side. So they would have to walk every square mile. And in the...
And if they wanted to buy so many acres, an acre was 10 of these square. 10, 10, 10, 10. So 640 acres, a quarter section. So when you read these things, it's like the northwest quarter of section 6. So you have all these divisions of, I wanted to have those slides for us to see, but somehow I couldn't get it this morning on my, yes, May?
David paid well?
I don't think so. $150 they got from LaPorte to begin. That would have to pay for his food, you know, probably lodging at sometimes. Yeah. And all of this, then all this information went to LaPorte. Eventually, LaPorte's office was moved to Winnemac. Eventually. Yeah, Barb?
How much area did he survey per day? Was there an average?
That's only a guess on our part. How much area was surveyed in a day? I would be happy, I bet, if I could get one line on the north line of a section.
And there was, if you had an impenetrable thicket of shrubs or whatever else, there's no going around, or this one's not going to be straight or whatever else, unless you were not very good at your job. But
Right. So it was amazing how they did it.
There's so much water, too.
So much water.
How did they keep it so straight?
They used a sun compass, and they got true north, and then they knew where the baseline was down in the southern part of the state, and there were meridians that went north and south that were set meridians, and they went off of those. That's as much as I know.
and remember, we're setting a square map system on a planet that is not flat, believe it or not.
Yeah.
It is round. So even So even for the surveyors, my dad owned property in Iowa, and there was this little sliver at the north end of between his and the road. And they would have to add these slivers in periodically to account for the curvature of the earth, because you could only put so many squares together before they would start, as a puzzle piece, trying to put it on a globe, not fitting, or like taking a sheet of paper and trying to wrap it on something spherical.
They didn't just use the sun. They used all kinds of astronomical objects in the sky to figure out where they were.
This was kind of touched on yesterday a little bit, but for those who weren't here, they were writing the numbers on the top, and letters on the top we talked about the township and ranges, which the townships persist to this day. When you talk about West Township, I believe that's 6 miles by 6 miles,
Right.
roughly, and has, so 6 times 6, 36 sections, 36 square miles in each of those. And so you're starting at a corner, and he says he's going north, and it says 25.00, so 25 chains even, which would have been a little over a quarter mile. He said, leave wet prairie.
Yeah.
And then the next one says a white oak, maybe 10 inches in diameter,
Yeah.
at 28.02 chains.
Yeah.
So ecologists use these as kind of primary documents for understanding what the vegetation was like. Because it was changed so rapidly, a lot of those species were either lost or that persisted only as seeds in the seed bank.
Notice it says Menominee Preserve. That was about 1.5 miles over that way. And so this whole thing about, then you went to LaPorte or you went to Winnemac to buy your plot of land. And I think it was very much, I don't know the number, per acre. I want to say $1.50, but maybe I'm thinking of Mother Mary, I don't know. But it wasn't very expensive. But the land here was very wet, so probably went cheaply. Anything else? Yeah.
When did they start identifying a certain section for a school in each township? Is that later on?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Did you hear that?
Was it section 16? Does anybody remember? There was one section that was chosen in every township to be the school. It was kept by the government to be the township school. And I think it was section 16 always.
Could have been.
Not sure. I just wondered, but
imagine-
that would be after this probably, huh?
West School is in section 16.
Yeah, to see.
Wonder if each, yeah.
So a little note about the school sizes and then the ranch and farm sizes is that, as you're kind of familiar with, the gradient of rain, because of the rain shadow of the Rockies, it's very dry just on the east side of the Rockies, and gets progressively wetter as we go west. Whereas in Indiana, we get maybe 40 inches, about this much rain every year throughout the year. And the soil is a little more fertile out here. So as a consequence, you can get more crops per acre here than you can out in Illinois, Iowa, North Dakota. And so the population density followed that, because while you may only need 80 acres in Indiana, in Illinois you may need 90 or 100, and certainly once you get in kind of western Iowa, they would get bigger. And so the schools, they would enlarge those areas that for each given school, there would be a larger kind of radius around that you would have to get to the school. And you couldn't survive, in Wyoming or South Dakota on 80 acres. You would need a lot more, because instead of as intensive and productive as it is here, you'd have something extensive, more grasslands and rangeland rather than cultivated ground.
Makes me think of why the Plymouth is in the middle and why the capitals of the countries are in the middle. It's the whole travel thing, Chris.
No, May is right. Yeah, what she had said was right. So according to the Land Act, prior to the Constitution, Section 16
Was the school? Yeah, they numbered them in a way that went from, was it from west to east, and then
I believe it starts in the northeast.
northeast?
It goes 6 over and then down, and then 6 over and then down. So you have 1 through 6, then 7 through 12, and then 13, 14, 15, 16. So, this is close to the middle. And then it goes down in kind of a snake like that, and then a adjustment
So our property here is on sections 5 and 6 of the township west. Interesting. Thanks for your attention.
Albert has a question in the back.
I'm not sure if this was touched base on, but how did the Native Americans, what were their measurements like, and how was that then integrated with, say, the surveyors? Are there any accounts from Native Americans personally and how they measured land? Is it by horses or amount of days walk, or?
I don't think, because they were so nomadic, I don't think they measured land exactly.
I honestly couldn't give you an answer other than presumably it would be measured in days' journey. So it would be more about which may change then with the type of vegetation. So if it's flat and grassland, you're going to move very fast versus boggy or shrubs and thickets. So that would be my guess, but I really am not entirely sure.
You know, Tecumseh tried to get all of his people together to work against all these treaties that the Europeans were trying to take their land. So Tecumseh got all these chiefs together to try to counteract that. And it was like 1813, 1817 when he lost this battle of fallen timbers up in Canada. And that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. And after that, was it 38?
Yeah, I believe that there was a coalition, and they were fighting I think maybe the Battle of Tippecanoe, if I'm reading, and then they were involved in the War of 1812. And
his brother.
But yeah, there was kind of that decisive when they kind of stopped fighting. But then between that time and 1938 was a period of 20 years where it essentially was kind of fought to a draw. And they were, would have been here for another 20 years living alongside the first settlers before they were removed.